Hey, everybody, welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Variety Talk Show series. Hope you guys are doing well. You can see our guest on the screen, Ian Harris, joining us from Los Angeles, California. Fantastic comedian, actor, voiceover, going to be joining us, talking about cool things he's working on, things he's done, and so much more. Hey, everybody, welcome to our Entertainment Lifestyle Variety Talk Show series. I'm your host, Jim Masters. Nice to have you with us. If this is your first time joining us here on the Jim Masters Show Live series, well, we welcome you. We were just checking out audio, and Ian and I were having a nice conversation before we went live, and everything is looking and sounding good. Hey, hope you're having a good day today. I was busy on the air doing my thing, radio, television is my thing, and hosting lots of radio shows, and we had a couple of TV shoots earlier, so busy around here. We are in the New York area, on the East Coast, New York area along the southern New England coast between New York and Boston. And we're going to make you laugh with Ian. He's a brilliant comedian. He also does a lot of incredible voice work, which we're going to touch upon as well, and so much more. Gang, if this is the first time you're watching the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Variety Celebrity Talk Show series, that's a mouthful. That gets longer and longer by the day. I don't know how that's happening. Just say the Jim Masters Show and everybody knows what you're talking about. You can comment live in our JMS Lovely chat room, as we call it. And that's if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Costs you nothing. Just hit that red subscribe button. And you could comment, say hello to each other, say hello to us. We might even sprinkle a comment or two on the screen below when we are here. And we welcome everybody from all around the world. We reach an international audience. We hear from all across the United States, Canada, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. Still waiting for somebody in Antarctica. If you got somebody in Antarctica that likes to watch programs like these, let them know about us. We'll make them one of our JMS Lovely viewers ASAP. So good to see you, and really excited to have Ian on the show. Matter of fact, Ian, we have a mutual friend, Leslie Wolf, fabulous comedian, Leslie Wolf, and so much more. She's probably watching even right now as well. Hello, Leslie. We have a mutual friend in Leslie, which I think is absolutely fantastic. She mentioned to him, got to get on that Jim Masters show. I loved it. And it was really kind of her to do that. He's got a fascinating and funny mix of spot on impressions. We might even hear some of those impressions today. Clever, cutting edge comedy. Ian's act has landed him on many appearances on shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live, Comedy Central, as well as 2-hour TV specials. His first Critical and Thinking in 2014, AXS TV, called A Truly Masterful Hour of Wit, Humor, and Derisive Jabbing. His second special, Extraordinary, 2017, just that, Extraordinary. Top headliner for over 20 years. Ian was named number 25 in Entertainment Journal's Top 100 Comedians list, was a semifinalist in Comedy Central's Laugh Riots competition, and dubbed top character comedian in town by Backstage West. He's also been heard on the Playboy Radio and regularly on Sirius XM Raw Dog. Ian is also one of the top voiceover artists in Hollywood, having provided voice talent to clients such as Fox, Disney, XD, DirecTV, Bravo, Fuel, the Fox series Bones, and narrated the music-driven show Mad Genius on Fuse TV. His keen grasp of science, evidenced by his satirical as well as skeptical take on everything from religion to global warming deniers and beyond, has also earned him comparisons to favorite thinking man's comics like Lenny Bruce and Bill Maher and incomparable George Carlin. With a unique point of view and an impressive array of comedic talents, Ian delivers a thought-provoking style of stand-up that is all his own. And it's really cool to have him here again, coming to us live and direct from Los Angeles, California. Gang, put your hands together. We're going to welcome Ian to the show. Ian, welcome to the Jim Masters Show, my friend. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me. This is great. Yeah, Leslie talked very highly of the show, and it was, and she's like, you got to go on the show. So here I am. Thanks for having me.
Hey, we appreciate that as well. We took a little time. We started just a little late because we were toying with the cameras with the color, your color, right? Because you wanted he didn't want to necessarily look as red as he does. But
I don't know what's going on. I really don't. But it's okay. We'll be all right. I look a little Oompa Loompa-ish today, but that's all right.
You must have been doing your taxes.
Yeah.
That'll bring out the red in anybody you're seeing. So how are you, my friend? You busy these days?
I'm good. I'm very busy. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
actually too busy sometimes. I have
Yeah.
I actually own an MMA gym here in Los Angeles, and I'm been the last couple years since COVID been doing a lot of producing and writing and directing and for film. So
Yeah.
that's a
Uh,
nonstop job.
yeah.
Trying to raise money and get talent attached and do all that sort of stuff is just nonstop. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So, how did you first get started? What, sort of sparked your interest in comedy initially? Did you come from a comedic family, Ian?
I mean, my dad was funny. Absolutely, my family's all of my family, especially on my dad's side, is they're all pretty charismatic. They're all pretty funny. They're all, but nobody in the business necessarily. My dad did toy around with playing music when he was in the Navy, and when he got out of the Navy, he was in Hawaii, and he was a house MC at Honolulu Hotel or something like that for a little while. And and we grew up, or I grew up watching comedy. I grew up around comedy. I grew up being, watching Richard Pryor and George Carlin and all these,
Yeah.
greats. And as a kid, like that was okay for me to watch that stuff. We didn't have a lot of restrictions in my household and that sort of stuff. And during high school, I was always good with voices and impressions and stuff. Since I was like a little kid, I could do them, and I didn't think that there was actually a job where you could do that until I started watching Saturday Night Live in high school and thought, well, wait, I could do what Dana Carvey does.
Yeah.
I could, I could do what Phil Hartman does. And yeah, and I just kind of set out this to do that. And then when I turned 21, 21st birthday, I went down to the open mic and went to get on stage and chickened out. So
You did? You went right
well,
up to it and then
so my whole I wanted to do. I'm from the Bay Area originally, San
yeah.
Francisco area, Santa
Yeah.
Cruz actually, and I wanted to be a comic my whole life. And I would call the clubs, and when I was 17, 18, hey, can I get on? And they'd be like, there's no open mic, you're too young. And they would say, you got to go to the Holy City Zoo. Um, and the Holy City Zoo was a little tiny, it was around forever. It started the careers of so many amazing people in San Francisco. And I think at the time, um, Robin Williams may have had something to do with owning it still. And this little tiny hole in the wall that had, every great comic in the world come through. And it was 21 and over. And they would always say, you got to go to the zoo. You got to go to the zoo. And I'm like, I'm not 21. I can't get into the zoo. So on my 21st birthday, a friend of mine, my friend Rick, and I, we went down to the zoo, and it's like an open mic. You sign up and that they put you up. And there was a handful of people there. It was again, it's like a little small dive bar. But the lineup that night, so I'd been watching comedy, and you could go to the Punchline when you're 18. So I'd seen comedy live for forever, but they didn't have the open mic. So here I am preparing. I know all these comics. I've seen Patton Oswalt. I've seen Wiley Roberts and all these people that were the Blaine Capatch and all the people that were the local comics that were a couple of years older than me or headliners. And I get in there, and they're all on this show.
Wow.
And then there's rumor of Robin Williams is coming in to do a set.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've never been on stage before. I'm 21 years old. I look like I'm 12. And I got to go up and follow Patton Oswalt and Johnny Steele and maybe Robin Williams and like all
Hmm.
these to my eyes these guys were legends. And I just said no, I'm not going to do it. And then luckily a month or so later I moved to Los Angeles for some other stuff, and I ended up getting up on stage and doing a show at the Ice House, and a Sunday night showcase that Dave McNary used to run.
Mm.
And he let me close it and gave me 15 minutes, and I crushed it, and it was a great set. And from that point
Wow.
on, I was nonstop doing comedy.
Do you remember some of the set, or do you remember what the theme was on that set that obviously took, hold, and then everybody said, this guy's really good, let's bring him on for more?
I mean, my stuff, it's funny because again, this is 1992, so it wouldn't hold up today. And but it was,
Ralph Cramden still does.
right. I was big. I talked a lot about. I remember I had all these bits about television and all the shows that were on 90210, and I made fun
Yeah.
of A Team with Mr. T and all this sort of stuff. But I think the magic of that one is I had been practicing my whole life, and I wanted to get up on stage, and I knew how to write jokes, and I knew how to deliver jokes, and that was just something that was kind of inherent to me. But when I got on stage, I'd never been on a stage before, other than
Mm.
I did an improv show in college, and like, I did 2 years of junior college. I did an improv show. I'd never been on a stand-up stage with the hot lights and the microphone. And I got up on stage and the lights blinded me. I couldn't see past the front
Yeah,
row.
right.
And I remember nervously, I still have the video. I have a videotape of my first time on stage. And I
Do you?
remember the first thing I said was, I go, "Whoa, can I get another light up here? I'm not blind yet." And they started laughing, and I said it into the mic, and it was so loud, I pulled the mic away from me, and I put the mic under my armpit. And I basically did my whole set with the mic under my armpit. And everyone thought it was part of the act. They thought I
It
was
was
just,
part of the shtick, right? Yep.
yeah, that I was just this weird, nervous kid.
You make
Um,
do. Yeah.
and then it just, I loosened up, and it went really well. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I think somebody was doing. There was a couple people doing a comedy. It was like one of those comedy classes
Yeah.
where, and their graduation is they get to do 5-10 minutes on a show.
Mm.
And I believe somebody was related to Dom DeLuise because Dom DeLuise was in the audience.
Oh boy, huh?
And I remember I get off stage, and the owner of the ice house comes over and says, "Hey, are you Ian?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Dom DeLuise is in the lobby here in the back. He wants to meet you." And I thought it was a joke because my grandmother's best friend owned a lookalike company,
Oh,
and
really?
I had invited him to the show, and he didn't make it. I thought he sent a Dom DeLuise lookalike
A lookalike, right? Yeah. How could it
to
be the
mess with
real
me,
one, right? Yeah.
and so I'm pretending he's a lookalike while I'm talking to him, and then I found out later on that it was actually the
It
real
was
Dom
the
DeLuise.
real. So did
So
you say you look a lot like Dom, but there's a few things I would change?
right,
Yeah, it's like, come on, buddy. You look good, but you're not
yeah,
really him.
yeah. The laugh
Wow.
isn't quite right. He goes,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
and you're not really doing it
With
that
the
well.
hands and right.
But yeah, that was pretty interesting. And I look back after, a couple months later when I realized it was really Dom DeLuise, and I was like, wow, I was
You
pretending
were
I was talking to him like he was.
you were touched by stardust there. Yeah, huh?
It was cool though. I mean,
Wow.
that's like, yeah, don't think that happens to everybody their first time on stage. You don't have a great set and come off and get asked to meet Dom DeLuise by Dom DeLuise. So that was pretty cool.
Were you also a fan of like the Rodney Dangerfields, the Phyllis Dillers, the Buddy Hackett's, some of the real legends along the
Yeah,
way
I mean,
too?
look, obviously, especially Phil Stiller and Rodney. I mean, they're
Yeah.
absolute. I mean, they
Just
were,
firing off, bum, 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 but you can't
and
even
just,
catch your breath. You watch the older stuff now on, the internet or whatever. You can't catch your breath. They're firing them off, and you're like still laughing from the last one. There goes another one. It's incredible.
yeah, and Rodney, that Rodney was amazing, and it's also amazing that you hear a lot of people don't know that Rodney Dangerfield didn't make it big until he was in his 40s.
At least, right?
Like
Yeah.
that's amazing to me. But yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of any good comedy. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's for me, I'm a real comedy snob, comedy nerd. So I like the art of it. Not,
Right.
so yeah, there's the basics of you got to make people laugh. But for me, it's like, are you a great writer? Are you a great performer?
Hmm.
Can you draw me into a story? Can you also do one-liners? Like I want to see all of it. Like, sometimes I want to see the one-liners. I want to see the Stephen Wrights. I want to see the God, Mitch Hedberg's, right? Sometimes I want to see the storyteller. Sometimes I just want to sit back and watch, somebody tell a great story. Sometimes I want to see an improv. I want to see Jonathan Winters or
Oh, Jonathan Winters, huh?
right.
Gee.
I mean, he
Ah.
wasn't a stand-up, but it's like I could watch Jonathan Winters just
Oh, and you see him on well, you can see all this on the internet. And I think some of those, decades kind of channels, Antenna TV, the Dean Martin roasts.
so great.
That's just where everything. And I would imagine too. I've chatted with a couple of comedians and comedians who've come through, and I've asked them, do they think like some of the material that was on those types of shows of the day, and like the Don Rickles, when you listen to his stuff, that material is still hilariously funny. His delivery, his facial
Right.
expressions, the whole bit. would any of that be viable today? And some people have said, well, we're not sure if the Don Rickles stuff would fly today. Have you, has that something you've had to deal with at all, as far as just everything being so, there's a lot of sensitivity now,
Right.
and it's a comedy had to take a look at that and sort of rearrange some of the way they deliver things. And
Yeah.
some people are, some aren't. But how about for you?
Like, I mean, I think that that's yes and no. I think that no comedian I know likes political correctness. No comedian I know, from the most liberal to the most conservative, nobody I know likes people who are overly sensitive, don't get jokes, don't get nuance. Absolutely. That being said, I don't think it's as bad as, and I don't want to put this too much on on one political side, but the conservative groups right now make it sound like you can't say anything and comedy's dead. And I go, no, lazy comedy's dead. Easy comedy's dead. You can still write. I mean, look, I'm a liberal from Northern California. I'm an atheist. I talk about race, religion, and politics on stage. And I used to do one-nighters in Montana and Idaho and the Northwest and in the South. And I was all over the place doing one-nighters to rednecks and bars. And yet somehow I could make them laugh at stuff that they vehemently disagreed with me on.
Isn't that
So,
amazing?
so I feel like and sometimes they didn't, of course.
Yeah.
Sometimes the people that I thought were my tribe, I'd be on a show in the Punchline in San Francisco, and they're not feeling what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the trick is, how do you make what you do funny? And yeah, we have to change a little bit of language. We have to be a little bit more sensitive. We have to be better writers now. But you can still explain things out. Like, I think the quick fire joke stuff has to be a little bit more PC nowadays, because you don't have as much time to talk. But I'm used to going up and explaining my situation before I tell the joke. Because if I just tell the joke, I'm gonna anger a lot of people, because I'm saying
Mhm.
something I usually say stuff that's pretty, controversial. Especially, like I said, I talk a lot about religion, which you're not supposed to talk about. I talk a lot about politics, you're not supposed to talk about. So I have to set it up. So I'm very wordy, and and I have no problem doing that. I find that if you can engage people and draw them into a story, that's what Dave Chappelle does. That's why Dave Chappelle is revered still by liberals and conservatives and everybody, because he can just draw you into a story, and then he's funny.
Right.
Richard Pryor is
Yeah.
the master of all masters. I mean, he's the best I've ever. I think most comedians will say the best ever, but he can tell you funny stories. He can tell you one-liners. He can say stuff that you disagree with. He can get political. He can make a statement that people go, whoa, I can't believe he just said that. A black man in 1971 just said that statement in front of a white audience, and they laughed. That's your job. So
Yeah.
find a way, for the people that are like, oh, we can't say anything, quit complaining and find a way to make it funny, because there is a way to
Right.
make it funny.
There's a way to make it funny. Exactly. So how do you describe your style, your humor? Are you observational? What is your style for those who haven't experienced it yet?
I used to always say, when I was, people compare me a lot to Carlin, and I
They
think that's
do,
only
yeah.
because,
And Bill Maher and some others, yeah.
yeah, I think that's, I don't like too many comparisons, because I think I don't want to try to live up to one of the
Plus, you
greatest
have
two
your own
comedians of all
uniqueness
time.
too. Yeah,
But
right.
I get it. It's because of subject matter, I think, for that. But for me, growing up, I've always said that I'm like, if I mashed comedians together to make me, when I was, trying to create a comedian, for me, I was trying to be 50-60% Richard Pryor,
Mm,
and then the other, or maybe 60-70%, and the other 30 was a mash between Dennis Miller and Dana Carvey.
mm,
Like, I was always trying to be the silly guy who could do crazy voices, but I wanted my stuff to be smart. I wanted my writing to be clever. I wanted great analogies, and I wanted that stage presence and that storytelling and that wordsmithery of a Richard Pryor, and that
yeah,
realness of Richard Pryor. When he tells you something, like, I don't like dishonest comedy. If someone's like,
yeah.
I was in the store today and I robbed it, and you're like, no, you didn't. Even if the joke's funny, you're not like, no. if you're telling me a story and it
Kinda ironic.
exaggerates and it gets ridiculous, I'm fine
Yeah,
with that as long as it's based in honesty
and
and reality.
honesty, yeah.
And when I watch a Richard Pryor, it's honest.
Right.
He's
Oh, yeah.
telling you
He's
his
rolling,
life,
right?
right?
Yeah. We've
So
had, Richard Pryor Jr. and Rain Pryor, his daughter, who are they're both friends, and they've been on the show as well, and, they've talked about that, just the authenticity of his humor and just he was, the real deal on so many levels. And what are some of the things that inspire you, like, today? What are things that are inspiring you comedically?
I mean, so I'm semi-retired from stand-up in that I don't do touring. I don't tour anymore. I'm probably not going to put out another special. I do a few shows every year that I like to do. I
You've done it
do
a long time, right? I mean, I
yes, 30
mentioned some of
years.
the it's hard to believe because you do look, fresh out of school.
Oh yeah, but yeah, no, 30 years,
What
92 is
moisturizer do you use?
yes, exactly. Apparently, whatever it is, it makes
Guess
me
this
red.
whole audience is gonna get some.
Right. I think it's beet juice. I don't
Yeah,
know.
right. You've been doing it 30 years. He was in his bassinet when he started making The Family Left, folks.
But for me, if I was still on stage doing it regularly, I'm still inspired by the same people I've always been inspired by. I mean, I'm a little let down. I don't like where Dennis Miller's stuff is gone, but I still think he's a brilliant writer. I think he's still a brilliant comedian. His old stuff is so genius. I can still sit around and watch old Richard Pryor, and even though I know it word for word, I can, one thing that inspired me. You mentioned Rain. So I have a podcast called Critical and Thinking with Ty Barnett and Ian Harris. Ty Barnett's my best friend, who's also a comedian. And we talk, it's a political podcast. It's not really a comedy podcast. But one time we had Rain Pryor and Kelly Carlin on at the same time.
That's
And
interesting. Yes.
to me, it was just really interesting because Ty and I are both dads of
Mhm.
daughters.
Mhm.
We're both comedians. Um, I'm a white comedian who people compare sometimes to George Carlin. He's a black comedian. His favorite comic is Richard Pryor.
Well, tonight
And
you're
it was
purple.
yeah, and yeah, exactly. And so to have the two daughters of the two, in my opinion, greatest comedians of all time, and they actually knew each other growing up
Yeah.
as well, and to have them both on talking stories about, because we didn't really want to talk so much about anything other than what is it like being, everyone would probably ask them, what are your dad like? I want to know what was it like for you
Mhm.
growing up with that? Like that had to be, and their stories were parallel, so many parallels, but also just insane stories. And that's one of the favorite podcasts I've ever done, if not the favorite podcast I've ever done. But I was so inspired by just listening to what they do and how they, Rain was into politics and she's back and she's writing and she's acting and Kelly's
Producing and
doing
directing and yeah.
yes, and Kelly's doing was doing her own show and writing and all. And I'm just like, they were so amazing in their own right, and they just went and did their own stuff. But it's like, that's got to be so difficult, but also so amazing to like, you can't even imagine like what would it be like to be the kid of somebody that everybody on the planet knows
Mhm.
and most people revere, and then you've got to be your own person too. And they're just both such amazing people. So for me, that was inspiring to just to hear them talk, because I'm like, I got a daughter that you know that you know how am I affecting her? Is it
Right.
positive? Is it negative? I mean, I don't have the problems that in the major fame that they had, obviously, but still, like, am I screwing up my kid by I don't know. So that was really fun to have. That was really inspiring.
So what are some things that are on your mind today? What's Ian thinking about today?
Well, I apologize for my dogs. Uh,
Huh, let them
um,
in, let them jump all over you. They love
yes.
that. Our
Um,
audience loves that.
but what's inspiring me, I'm big into, you can see a little thing behind me, What Matters. I just made a short film and got a couple feature films that I'm doing. For me, what's inspiring is telling stories, and writing about the human condition You know, for me, I want to write about things that make people feel something, and that's always been with me. My, um, you know, comedy. I wanted to make a. I want to make people think with my comedy. I wanted people to laugh and think, and um, with filmmaking now, I want to make people feel. Um, and yeah, and that's kind of what I'm really trying to do now is write and direct and make films that make people think as well. Think, but also I want I want to, you know, want people to walk out of the theater or turn off the TV or whatever and sit there and think about what they just saw and think about how it affects humanity and think about how, you know, it affects their empathy toward other humans, you
Mm,
know?
yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned you also do impressions. What are some impressions that you do? And maybe you can share some with our audience.
Uh, you know, it's funny. I was kind of known for a while for doing pretty much anybody. Like that was kind of my thing, is I could just pretty much imitate people. Um, Oddly enough, because it's become like the hack that, you know, the old hack one was Jack Nicholson, the newer hack one is Christopher Walken. But oddly enough, I'm often credited as the first person to do Christopher Walken on stage, um, and I did it in I think '93 by accident. And I was on stage at the Ice House, and like it was probably my third show, and I decided I was going to do an impression, and I was doing improv impressions, and I was trying to do Dennis Hopper,
Oh yeah.
and so I said I was going to do the scene from True Romance, which I can't repeat here, but I said I'll do the scene from True Romance. Give me a scene, give me a situation that they were in, and somebody yelled out like, you know, post office. And so I just went into this thing where I was going to try to do my Dennis Hopper, and I ended up doing, you know, whatever True Romance set in a post office, and I did both characters back and forth, you know, where I was, you know, doing Dennis Hopper, and then I was, you know, doing the Christopher Walken with you, your dad, you know, and I was doing the whole thing, and I did the little scene back and forth. I improvised whatever it was, the True Romance scene with in a post office. And when I got off stage, a bunch of people kept going, "Man, I've never heard anybody do a Christopher Walken impression. That was a great Christopher Walken impression." I was like, "Who?" I said, oh yeah, the other guy in that scene. Um, and then I realized later that my Dennis Hopper ended up sounding more like Robert De Niro. So I kept getting into the huh.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, no, that's De Niro. That's not Dennis Hopper. But yeah, I mean, I used to
Who
try
do
to
you do now? Is there anybody you do now you want to share?
gosh, I'm trying to think of people that are modern that I do, because I do so many.
It could be
Um,
anybody. It could even be somebody from yesterday. Yeah, they'll probably
you know,
remember.
I think um, the one that people always tell me when when I still do impressions. Um, so I used to open, man. I used to open for Dave Chappelle.
Oh yeah.
And I opened for Dave many times, and after I get up on stage and I'd introduce Dave Chappelle as Dave Chappelle. I was, man, welcome to the stage, Dave Chappelle. And I remember Dave got up on stage one time and goes, "Man, I don't sound like that." And he goes, "Yeah." So that was kind of cool. And then, but the other one is, I always used to do. I tried to do really weird, obscure ones. So I would do like James Spader, and then the one that I really that people always go, "Man, I love that you do." Um, um, John Malkovich,
Oh yeah.
and I think maybe because I kind of look like John Malkovich, but I used to just start talking like John Malkovich for some reason, and I never understood why I would talk like John Malkovich, but I always enjoyed talking like John Malkovich, and I didn't think that anybody would ever get this as an impression on stage because I didn't know if anybody actually liked John Malkovich, but apparently people love John Malkovich. So,
Well done. That is funny.
so
Can you
yeah,
do
so
can you do this guy? He always pops in on the show. Mr. George Burns is with us.
oh boy, God,
Is that a good
I
one? Yeah. My aunt collected dolls and this got passed down to me. It's like one of the really expensive
that is
collectibles. He's
cool.
got his cigar, he's got his red hanky, he has his martini down below. He's sort of like our associate producer here at the Jim Master Show. And he's there. And
Did you ever say goodnight, Gracie?
There's a similarity I think I see between the
I
two
know, right?
guys. Here, we've got the nephew of George Burns on tonight,
Yes.
Ian Harris.
It's called It Burns. That's
Right. But talk about a classic comedian, right? And
oh man,
actor,
he
and
of course like one of
lived
the
way
greatest.
up into played God in the movies and just, sort of set the tone for so many.
Yeah, I mean, it's you think about. I love the history. I love history in general, but I do think it is sad when people don't know their history,
Hmm.
especially if like you're a comedian or if you're a musician, or if you're you know if you're a modern day drummer, and I say oh Buddy Rich, you better know who I'm talking about,
Oh my God, one of the
you know
greatest on the planet. I was just
right?
looking at two of his videos last week. Uh,
Yeah,
Unreal, just unreal. And Maynard Ferguson on the trumpet, another incredible legend. I mean, some of these people just blow you out of the water,
yeah. I mean, you got to
Just
know. For me, you have to know history in general, but especially if it's the thing you
Ernie
do. And I love.
Kovacs.
Yep.
Remember Ernie Kovacs?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's another, yeah. Short life, but another incredible talent, really. So, how
And
much of your, world is comedy and voice work now?
so so up until 2020, up until COVID, it was pretty. I did a lot of voice work and a lot of comedy. That was pretty much all I did. I toured a lot and I did voice work. Um, when COVID hit, both of those things pretty much stopped, which is why I transitioned into doing the producing and directing, writing movies, um, because there were no shows and commercials had shut down, and
How
my
did it
voice.
change your comedy?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just couldn't tour anymore, and they were doing the online things like the Zoom shows, and I just
Which is
won't do it. I just
difficult. Yeah, it's not easy to pull it
there's
off. It's not
there's
the
no
same.
audience
It's
coming
not the
back.
same. It's you talking to a screen, right?
No, I wouldn't do it. So I yeah, so I do a few shows every year. I do Dragon Con. I do a couple of shows every year that I enjoy doing, but I just stopped pretty much doing comedy, unless it's a really good show that somebody asked me to do. And voiceover, unfortunately, um, what happened is I was doing, I had my agency, which has been I was with WME, which is one of the biggest agencies in the world, but their voice department decided to close down during COVID, and they
Ah,
had 1,000 clients, right? So
yeah,
those clients all went to other places, but there was no work.
yeah.
So what I did is I decided I'm like, I'm just gonna wait till this thing passes, and then I'll find an agent afterward and try instead of trying to find an agent while 1,000 other voice actors are looking for an agent with no work going on.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
And and then after like a year, I just decided that I was so busy. Voiceover takes a lot of work.
It
You get
is.
every morning I got to do the auditions all day long, and you
Yes.
know. So I decided I was going to hold off, and then I just haven't gotten back to it. But for a long time, I was one of the two voices for the Bravo network for 8 years.
Yeah,
I
do some of
had
that. Yeah, do some of those like you did the promos and everything?
promos, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
on Bravo, is like
You didn't do and on Bravo,
yeah,
some of
but
the
but Bravo was way over the top. So Bravo was always like when they're like tonight on Real Housewives, da 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 da, whatever, only by Bravo, and they always said only by Bravo. That was their thing, and it was
Oh,
like
yeah, I've
very
heard
pushed,
you.
very over the
Multiple,
top.
yeah, right, exactly. On
Yeah,
Bravo, right.
on Vanderburg Rules or whatever it was, right? Like
Yeah. Did you
Vanderpump Rules,
enjoy
like
doing all that?
yeah, that was really
The
cool.
voice of that network, huh?
I
Mm.
love that. And I did about a year. I was Disney XD, which is same thing. It's like it's always like this really crazy thing because it's the pushed kid stuff, um, which is funny because I'm usually known for being like more the more conversational type person,
Right,
but I both of those I got were really pushed, really high strung voiceover stuff.
right, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I love that. I always wanted to do because of the impressions and stuff. I always wanted to do more animation, and I was never able to crack that. I have a lot of friends who and colleagues, people I've worked with, comedians, Tom Kenny, SpongeBob, and there's Carlos Alice Rocky, who's another San Francisco comedian, and Lori. There's so many great animation actors, voice actors that I know, but it's such a tight group that
It
it's
really is.
really hard to break into that
They
group.
use a lot of the same people
Yeah,
and yeah. You have the
I've done a
studio in the
few.
house?
What's that?
You have a studio in the house?
I did. I don't anymore. I used to have a just in my office where I'm at now. I had a little booth in my computer, but I like since I'm not doing it right now, I don't have any of that stuff up. I never did the full booth with the ISDN
All
because
that, yeah.
I was about to, but then Bravo switched gears a few years back when they changed. They got rid of me and the guy. There was a guy that was there for like 17 years. It was the main dude, Rick. They got rid of both of us basically and rebranded. And it's funny because to me, it still sounds like us. It doesn't sound like any different. I'm like, you just say only on Bravo now, not only by Bravo.
Actually, I would have thought it's all the same, right? That the sound is the same for all
Yeah.
these years, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's really not. It doesn't sound. Yeah, it doesn't really sound that much different. So I'm like, that's kind of weird that you rebranded with a very similar voice. But they do that. New,
The guy $1.50 less. Is that what it is?
I think
He's doing it for $1.50 less.
right. What I think it really is though is that and I really have to apologize. I don't know what my dog.
No,
never
they're
barked.
loving it. That some of the viewers are loving it. He said, "Bring the dog in." The dog
Yeah,
runs
I wish I
in.
could, but I'm not going to.
Actually, that's you. That's actually you throwing your voice. There's
Yeah.
no dog. That's you doing it.
Yeah, I don't know what he's normal. There must be somebody on the other side of the fence doing something because I don't know what he's doing out there. But yeah, I apologize. But it's yeah, it's I think that as far as doing the Bravo stuff, I think what happens in those cases is like usually a new executive VP comes in or somebody comes into the network and they want to kind of put their stamp on the show or they want to put their stamp on the network. And the easiest thing they can do is switch out the voiceover, and they don't want it to be too drastic because
Right.
then the viewers will be like, wait, this isn't our guy. So they just change it up a little bit and then go, yeah, that was me. I changed out the voiceover guy or whatever. I mean, they do that with narrative. Sometimes you're watching 10 years, you're watching a show and all of a sudden it's the narrator sounds different. And you're like, and sometimes like Forensic Files was one, like they did Forensic Files too. I watched Forensic Files because it's a great show, but man, the guy who did it for all those years, I love that guy's voice. Can't remember his name.
Absolutely. I used to love the voice of God sounds too, the Ernie Andersons and some of the CBS announcers, and they were live. A lot of them were live staff announcers. So when the slide would come up, they would say, "This is CBS."
Yeah.
Like
who is it? Was it? I'm trying to remember who was it that did the. They used to always do those great turns on the network where they'd be like, and then the guy would do and he was then right. It'd be like he'd go like tonight an all new MacGyver.
Ernie Anderson. That's Ernie Anderson.
Ernie Anderson. Yeah. I just love that. I was
Love boat.
Yeah, it was like on the Love Boat.
The winds of war.
So and so, and it was like very deep. Then I don't know, new, and it was all
tonight. I know. You don't really hear any of that anymore. No. I know that. It was the voice of God sound that they used to say. I know. That's incredible. So so what's on your mind now? What to make them laugh, make them smile? The world has been a crazy place lately. What are some things that are making you laugh? What do you think about road rage?
I mean, for me, I've been really trying to find TV shows that make me laugh. There hasn't been a lot. Like I will say I really got in, although it's season down. I really got into Cobra Kai, the TV show Cobra Kai. I just loved the first season. I just thought Johnny was so hilarious. And
John Murray goes, "This is NBC. Plug the film festival."
Right.
John Murray watching. Welcome everybody.
He's a friend of mine. He watches all of our podcasts too.
Good to have you with us, John, and everybody who's new.
Yeah, you guys have a great little crew here too. We I'm a big fan of Ricky Gervais. I love the original Office, British Office. I love British TV.
Oh yeah, all the Britcoms.
Yeah, my friend actually, they just got announced the other day. I was talking to her right before this. My friend Camilla is the daughter of John Cleese, and they are doing a.
Now this is a different Camilla, right?
Yeah,
not the one at Windsor Castle.
No.
My friend Camilla. We were having tea and crumpets the other day, Jim.
but they just announced. I saw it was on Deadline the other day that They're doing a Faulty Towers reboot.
Oh, they really?
So John and his
Wow.
daughter are doing a Faulty Tower, and it's being produced
Faulty
by Rob
Towers. Yeah.
Reiner.
Rob Reiner.
So that
Oh.
is guaranteed to be good. And yeah, I mean, so I
Keeping Up
love.
Appearances is another funny one.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
With Hyacinth Bucket or Bouquet.
yeah.
Patricia Routledge, the incredible actress. Good Neighbors. I mean, there's a lot of them. Working these years, on PBS, we were always familiar with all of
Oh,
those because they would run. They'd have blocks on Saturday nights of the Britcoms from Thames or BBC, whatever it
mhm.
may be, and cool stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting take on humor, their style and their wit, but very funny. Yeah, very, very
Yes,
funny. And
that's
and
my
fast.
favorite.
A lot of it's fast too. It's
And
like there's
and
a
and
movement. Benny Hill.
and well written and clever usually. Like I just the Brits are just they're just so much more clever than us. I think like one of my favorite shows. My daughter and I've been rewatching it a lot lately. Is it only did 2 seasons, but Ricky Gervais's Extras. If you've never
Mm,
seen it, do yourself a favor. It is brilliant. And he had a guest star on, like a big famous guest star on, because the whole premise is that he wants an extra on movies, and
yeah,
he's being his typical smarmy, jerky self, but he's trying to get a line. So he's trying
yeah,
to get an actual acting role
to get a
and get a
role.
line on a TV. So every episode is him trying to weasel his way into a line as an extra. And they had like, Patrick Stewart, they had Ben Stiller, they had Kate Winslet, they had all these like great actors playing funny versions of themselves, like over the top versions of themselves, making fun of themselves. And it's such a great show. And my daughter and my wife watch the IT Crowd,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
which I tried to not watch. I was like, ugh, I don't want to watch a modern, but man, I got to give it up to that. That show it's so funny.
It
It's
is,
so
isn't
well
it?
done. Was
Yeah,
that?
it is. It really
Yeah,
is, isn't it?
yeah. It's so good. I mean, so it's for those Chris O'Dowd and was it Richard Ayude is how you
Mm,
pronounce it?
yeah,
So
right.
good.
Really
Um,
cool.
and then yeah, there's a another there's a new one that I'm trying that I want to start watching. She's from Ricky Gervais. He did that show which was not a comedy, which was fantastic though. It was Afterlife.
Oh
Um,
yeah, another good one. Yeah,
and I can't remember her name, but she was in Afterlife. Now she's got a new show called Kunk on the Earth. Kunk on Earth.
yeah,
Have you seen
yeah.
that? Have you seen
I
the
haven't
preview for it?
seen that yet. No, I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so it's a spoof of she's like a documentary travel guide person, like a travel channel person, and she's it looks like she's supposed to be kind of a moron, and she's a very very travel channel person, got all the cliches and the lines and whatever, and she's goes around and does whatever, visits different places, and it's very British, but it looks so funny. So I'm queuing that up to watch it soon.
That's cool, huh? That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, do you miss doing stand up?
Yes and no. I mean, I always love being on stage. I always want to be on stage. It's like that's really where I feel most comfortable. But I don't miss the business of it anymore. I don't miss
Yeah.
having to scramble for shows. I don't miss having, the pay. Like I was at a point where I was doing my own shows and we would, rent out theaters and smaller, 200-300 seat theaters, and we'd try to sell those out and, do it all yourself, four wall and your own advertisement. And that's great, but it's a ton of work. And then doing comedy clubs and stuff where somebody else is promoting it and paying you, the pay hasn't gone up in 30 years.
Isn't that
It's just like
amazing? Yeah.
it's ridiculous. I'm like,
Mm.
the prices have gone up, the drink prices have gone up, the ticket prices have gone up, but
But
they're
what
still
you
paying
get
comics what they were
is
paying them in 1996, and it's
it's incredible.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I,
That's
I don't I don't miss that.
how about when you're making those appearances like on Comedy Central and Jimmy Kimmel? That must have been cool too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, what I did with Jimmy Kimmel was mostly sketch stuff. So I was and voiceover stuff. I did a lot of that, and they still call me to do voiceover stuff, which is cool.
You know what's
Um,
funny is when he does the stints with Aunt Chippy,
oh yeah,
his Aunt Chippy.
I used to
That's funny.
do the one that I did all the time that I really enjoyed doing is they like to do fake commercials, and they
Yes.
take real commercials and they take the voice of the real commercial and then they dub in somebody matching that voice to do what they want them to do.
Right.
So I always did the ShamWow guy.
Oh yeah, remember
So if
him?
you remember,
Yes.
he was really into the ShamWow. So every other week they would do a ShamWow commercial, and it would be the ShamWows. Like I remember there was a flood in or some sort of winter storm in Chicago, so they did like the snow wow or something like that, and then the swine flu hit, and they did the swine wow, and it was to soak up all the swine flu, and they would just use the real guy's commercial, but then they would dub me over, going, "Hi, it's Vince from ShamWow. You're gonna love this product. It picks up the swine flu. It picks up snow," and then they would just dub it back and make these little commercials. And I would have to lip match and use my voice over the actual ShamWow guy, and I love doing that kind of stuff. I think it's so much fun.
Isn't that cool? Did you ever meet the ShamWow guy?
No,
And it's funny how people know that person as not his name, but the ShamWow guy. Isn't that funny how that turns out sometimes? You're known as the person that's tied to the product, but they don't know your name personally. It's kind of interesting how that works, huh?
Well, it's funny because there's the whole thing with pitch guys, right?
Yeah.
Who was the really
Remember
famous guy?
Billy Mays?
That Billy Mays, yes. And he did that thing of saying his name. Hi, it's Billy Mays,
Billy
right?
Mays, right. We got the super glue
And I think that's such a smart thing to do. But the ShamWow guy, he never told us what his name was.
Never said it.
We know it's Vince. We know it's Vince, but we don't know his last. Vince from ShamWow, but we don't know what the rest,
what the rest of it is.
Vince ShamWow, as far as we know. We don't know.
And tomorrow night's guest, folks, is
Vince ShamWow.
The ShamWow guy.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's funny. Tell us about this. This was something that you did do in the past, right? The comedy tour. You pulled this up.
Yeah, so that's my partner Ty. We have the podcast, Critical and Thinking, which was named after my first comedy special. We just thought it fit, so we kept it. But yeah, so Ty and I, during especially when 2016, when Trump first came into office, it was and even to today, it's worse today. But how divided I mean, there's always been politics. There's always been right and left and red and blue and all that. But it got really vitriolic and really divisive. And so we thought it would be cool. Like, what if we each went up on stage and did race, religion, politics jokes from two different perspectives, right? Two friends who've known each other for 20 plus years. He's a, black guy from Chicago. I'm a white guy from Northern California. How do I joke about race? How do I joke about religion? How do I joke about politics? And then he'd go up on stage. How does he joke about religion? How does he joke about race? How does he joke about politics? And then we would go up on stage and do some comedy together. And then we would do a Q&A, which sometimes would get really heated. Sometimes it'd be really funny. You just never knew what you were going to get in the Q&A. And it was a really fun show.
You know what I'm laughing at? John Murray says Vince was George Santos, because George Santos is saying he did everything. He was everywhere. He's a scuba diver. He was this. He was that. So he was Vince, the ShamWow guy too, I guess.
Yes, apparently his real name. It was right after he was Katana Ravash or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. What a weird one that is. Like, I mean,
what's your take on all that?
Oh man, I mean, look.
3, 2, 1, go.
Yeah, look. The thing is this, that for me, it's I'm a very political animal, but I can't believe that we're at a position. I never thought I would see. I've always been very left leaning. I've always been very politically vocal. I've never been a big fan of the Republicans, but I never thought I'd see a day where Republicans are willing to put up with somebody who is a pathological liar, who's making up crazy stories just so they can have a slim margin. I mean, I was watching somebody who was a former RNC chair or something like that. It was on the news the other night after the State of the Union, and he was talking about how Marjorie Taylor Greene was screaming "liar, liar," and he was like, "In my day, which was only 10 years ago," he goes, "we would have reprimanded her. We would have." He goes, even if they didn't like the president, even if it was Obama and they didn't like him, we would have, the leader of that party would have said, "Whoa, sit down, shut up. Like, and you're removed from committees. You don't yell at liar at the president, even if you're on different sides. And the thing for me is like any other world, George Santos would have been asked to leave. The party would have said, no, you're not, you're not a representative of us. And I think that's sad where we're at, where it's like they don't want to lose one of their 6-person majority, so they're willing to put up with something that the world sees as this guy's he's a crazy person. I mean, I don't know if he's mentally ill, if he's got like an actual problem. I don't want to make fun of somebody who's got some sort of mental illness, or if he's just a jerk, or I don't know, or if he's a compulsive liar or pathological. I don't know what his deal is, but there's something wrong with George Santos, and everyone sees it. And if it's just him being a liar, he's a liar. But man, what does it take? What does it take for you to go, you know what? Some things are more important than politics. Some things are more important than party. Some things are more important than, sometimes the country or ethics, or having your integrity is more important. And that's what, out of all the things political, that's what bugs me the most right now, is that I feel like we've gotten
in our
past
society. That. Yeah, everybody's yelling and screaming, and nobody's coming to the table, and it's us versus them versus us type thing, no matter what side anybody's on, and nobody wants to like collaborate or listen. Nobody's listening. Everybody's talking. Yeah. That's a problem. Nobody's listening.
And I mean, and the thing is that, they poll people. The majority of people want X, Y, and Z things. And now sure, there's things that the left wants that, only 50% of the country want. There's things the right want that only 50% of the country want. But there's things that 70, 85% of the country agree on. And we could pass those things. We could pass that legislation, and we're not doing it just because they don't want the other side to get a win.
Right.
And that's I don't know, man. That's really hard for me to accept.
And to think people just in the 80s wanted their MTV.
That's all they wanted.
That's all they wanted. They just wanted their MTV. And that's it. You mentioned this too, which I think is kind of cool. Tell us about this project. I mean, I know you have the screen behind you, but here's another close-up version. Tell us about this. This is cool.
Yes, so we didn't end up getting nominated, but we did qualify for the Academy Awards this year. It's a short film.
Fantastic! Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Just qualifying is amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and it's a film that Ty and I, Ty Barnett, from my podcast, from the Divided Comic Tour, we had this idea years ago about. He just said, he goes, "Hey, I want to do this thing," and it was just going to be he and I, actually, and he's like, 2 guys sitting on a bus, and I just want to see their inner thoughts, judging all the people that get on the bus. Oh, look at this guy. Oh, look at this. What do they think of this guy? And just, they're both judging each other, and then they're both judging each other. Oh, this guy must be a criminal. Oh, this guy must be a white supremacist, whatever. And then at the end, it turns out they get off the bus the same place, and they were going to end up having to work together or something. And we just had this random idea. How would that go? And then years later, I was sitting on it, and with all the cop, the killings and all the stuff that's happening, and the Black Lives Matter stuff, I said, you know what, why don't we change it and make it a little bit different, and make it about, similar thing with, but 2 guys who end up in a situation where, we ended up in a bank robbery. And so what we did is we started at the end of the movie, and it starts with our lead, Malcolm, who's played by Malcolm David Kelly from Insecure and Lost, and he's dying on a bank floor, and we pull up and we see Mark, who's played by Rick Gifford, and he looks like a plainclothes cop, and he shakes his head in disgust, and he puts his gun in his pocket, and he walks out. And then we go back to the beginning of the film, and we follow their 2 lives, and we find out that their 2 lives aren't that different, and we follow them around to where they both, I don't want to give away what the whole thing's about, but they both end up in this bank. And a robbery's happening, and I won't give away what happens there, but of course, the black guy gets killed, and the idea of it is we actually start it in black and white, and we end it in color. So the final shot is the reverse shot of the opening shot, but it's now in full color. And the whole idea is that everyone who watches it has an idea of what's happening from the movie until you get to the end when all the information is there. You realize it's not what you thought. Even if you thought,
Mm,
you may think differently than I may think. We all have a different idea, but none of us have all the information. We're all assuming we think we know what happened. And then at
right.
the end, when we realize what happened, we're like, oh, that's not what I thought, which is what happens when you're sitting on the bus judging somebody, which is what happens when you walk into a bank and you're the cop and you see the black guy with the gun and you think he's robbing the bank and you shoot first, ask questions later. When you're the other guy who just wants his job back, but people think he's the racist or like whatever it is, we prejudge things without all the information, and that's kind of the whole idea of this film is it's we call it the story of the American tragedy. It's about healthcare. It's about racial inequality. It's about gun violence. It's about all sorts of different things that all culminate in situations that sometimes nobody's at fault, but everyone's lives get ruined. Um,
Mm,
and it's not just and for those people who are like, oh, it's not just a black guy, it's not just a white, it's a tragedy all around, as happens in real life. And it's not always black and white. And that's our tagline is without all the information, everything's black and white. And that's the thing is nothing's black and white. We think it is, it's not. So that's kind of what that's about. And yeah, now
very
we're doing a
cool.
festival circuit. We're doing it's going to be playing on March 1st here at the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles at the Golden State Film Festival. So
That is cool. Congratulations on all that as well. That's really
thank you.
cool. We dug this up too. This was cool.
Hmm. Extraordinary.
Great project. Tell us about this. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my second comedy special. I had actually that was done for Netflix, but by the time it got out, they had shifted up brass at Netflix, and the person who had asked me to do it was no longer in charge of comedy at Netflix. So it ended up not going to Netflix, even though it was a deal I had with Netflix. It ended up going on to Amazon Prime and I think Hulu and a few other places. But yeah, this was I wanted to do something that brought my comedy skepticism, which is what I do. I talk science and skepticism, and I wanted to bring that to the mainstream. So yeah, so it's kind of an evolution from the beginning to the end what of
It's just-
starting.
she was just coming in to hug you and tell you she loves you.
Yeah, no, she's going to pick up my daughter from school. Um, but it's a whole from beginning to end. It starts out normal, and we try to build into as sciencey as I can get, and bring everybody along for the ride, and then it ends with impressions. So, and I try to do science impressions. I
Yeah.
do impressions of the last bit I think is a pretty cool bit. If you
Yeah.
tune in for nothing else, I think you can still get on. It's also on my website, or it's on. I put it on my YouTube channel. So I have both my specials on YouTube for free now, because they're done with their run at the networks that they were on. So you can watch them on my YouTube channel for free. But the last part of that is 10 minutes of impressions. I think I do 20 or 30 impressions, and it's I do a movie called Climate Denial, and I do a fake movie trailer type thing about climate denialism, climate change denialism, and it's pretty cool. It's I'm very proud of that because it mixes my science and it mixes my what I think is good clever writing with impressions, which doesn't get done very often.
What are a couple of impressions that you did? Maybe you can share a couple?
Well, I mean, it's a streaming thought, so it starts out with I say, there's a lot of swearing, so I don't want to, but it starts out with me being Jason Statham as Mike Pence, and Jason Statham has a very I'll see if I can do it without cursing too. He says Jason Statham says in a movie, he says, "Hey Tommy, do you know what's gonna happen if that dog catches that rabbit? We are going to be," and he said, "effed." And if you know what I mean by F, he goes, "I mean proper," right? So
Proper.
proper effed. So I say that's how it starts out is if we don't get climate change under control, we are going to be effed. And by that I mean proper effed. Right? So that's how it starts, and then um it ends with I think uh
Oh,
Walken
yeah.
as a scientist who wants us to use the ice in our drinks. Uh It's really ridiculous, but it's funny. But I have a Dave Chappelle playing Dave Chappelle as Obama. Uh, Donald Trump plays himself because, of course, no one else could play Donald Trump. Okay, I get only Donald could play Donald. Um, so yeah, so it's pretty cool. I have John Malkovich. I've got as a scientist. I've got Gilbert Gottfried. So
You even
yelling
took
at
on
the
his facial expressions when you did that.
yes, he's Gilbert's one of my favorite. But why is it that you can't do Gilbert without screaming and yelling and blowing out the mics, and that's unfortunately the downside of Gilbert Gottfried. But he is another genius, or was another genius.
So you have this skeptical background. What are things you're skeptical about today in this world?
Well, to clarify, for those of you who don't, skepticism is a movement that's what sometimes they call scientific skepticism, which is not skepticism of science; it's skepticism through science.
Exactly.
But people confuse skepticism with cynicism a lot, and they're actually the
Yes,
opposite,
they do. Yeah.
right? People
Yeah.
go, "Oh, you're just a skeptic. You don't like it. You don't believe in
Like you
anything."
don't
No, no, no.
believe in anything, right?
Right?
Yeah.
No, we skeptics believe in stuff that's based on evidence. So
Fact.
I withhold belief until it's proven to me. And the proof that I accept is science. So, it could be anything. And it doesn't mean I don't believe it or I'm disbelieving it. It just means I don't believe it now. So you might come to me and say, hey, the leprechaun's living in my bathroom. Great. Show me the evidence of it. Until then, I'm skeptical of your claim that there are leprechauns in your bathroom. And if you can show me scientific proof that there are leprechauns, I'll go, cool. I
Right.
now believe in leprechauns.
Right.
So for me, it's, anything. So my comedy comes from that, where it's like, I look at a Bigfoot or ghosts or whatever, and I go, what are the scientific claims and how can I make these claims that people have funny by pointing out the scientific illiteracy or the scientific lacking in their claim, and make it funny to where even people who believe those things go, okay, you got me. It's kind of silly.
Well, then this pandemic must have given you some real material that they're talking about scientific skepticism and everything
Oh
else
man.
that's gone on, huh?
I mean,
Oof.
I will say the QAnon thing, the level. So a lot of skepticism is going after conspiracy theories, and the level of conspiracy theories that we've seen in the last uh, several years. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, there's always been conspiracies, and some of them, you can argue maybe, did JFK was Oswald alone or not? I mean, you can, there's different sides of that and whatever. But man, some of the stuff nowadays is like so wacky. Like speaking of JFK, like that one, there was the QAnon thing where JFK and JFK Jr. were going to come back from the dead and
I
become
heard
kings.
that.
And there were people waiting in Dallas. There was people for like a year living in Dallas, camping out, waiting for JFK and JFK Jr. to come back. And you're like, what the heck is going on here? That seemingly normal people are camped out for a year in Dallas waiting for and also two liberals, JFK and JFK Jr., to come back from the dead to anoint Trump the king of the United States and the 184th president of the Confederacy or something. And you're like, politics aside, that's just wacky. But there's a lot of that going on right now. I mean, flat Earth, it's the most flat earthers we've ever had in like the last 500 years.
The flat Earth thing, right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Have you tested it? Have you driven or sailed
yes.
to see if there's an end point, or it's just a circle? All life's a circle.
I did think about, and that's one of the things I like to when I talk about stuff like that. It's like I always like to point out the amount of people that would have to be involved. To me, that's where humor is. It's like you would have to have every airline pilot, every cruise ship operator, every scientist, every astronomer, all of these people.
Every balloon flying across the country.
They'd all have to be in on it. And for what? I actually do a joke in my act. I go, in my old act, I say, well, yeah, it's because they always say, follow the money. You got to follow the money. Follow the money. And you go, what's the money in proving that the earth isn't round? Are you trying to tell me that globe manufacturers it's Big Globe, man.
Yeah, right.
Those globe manufacturers make tens of dollars a year.
Yeah.
making globes for elementary schools. Could you imagine if they knew the world was flat? Like, I want to know what the end game is with the big globe. Like, who cares if the world was flat? Who's going to lose money from that?
That's right.
It,
Exactly.
it doesn't make any sense. But man, you can't convince them.
You can't, right? It's
It's fun. Like for me, one of my favorite lines in my act, it's specifically about a joke I do about chemtrails, but it's really about any government conspiracy. I always go, really, our government's behind this? And I'm like, is it the
yeah,
same government that can't deliver my neighbor's mail to me on time?
right.
Um, like, I mean, when I get my mail, it's 3 days late, and it's my neighbor's. It's not, but somehow they can keep down the cure for cancer. I don't think so.
Yeah. I know it is crazy, isn't it? It's just really become Nutville in so many different ways. You can't even go to a supermarket without possibly having something happen. If somebody bumps into you with their cart, that could be a major news story. It's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I really feel I will say like, as much as I was pro science and like, hey, we need to stay home, we need to whatever, mask, vaccinate, all that sort of stuff. As much as I was like, hey, let's not spread this thing and kill, we are another 6 million or whatever. I will admit that aside from economic issues with lockdowns that we are facing now, which we knew was going to happen and it sucks, the biggest thing I saw from this is the fear
Mm,
that has induced in people, the paranoia that COVID induced, but also not just the paranoia, the fact that people had nothing to do but be scared and be on the internet. I don't know that we're going to recover from this. Like, people being scared and being at home on the internet,
for
reading it,
hours and
watching YouTube,
hours.
that destroyed millions of people's brains. I'm convinced.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. They were petrified. We were all scared. Like, do we go outside? What if we get a box in the mail? Can we touch it? We don't know. We didn't know. The first few months, we didn't know if I get a delivery, is there going to be COVID on it? Is it going to
Right.
kill me? Like, we didn't know. And then you're home and you're searching and you're Googling, like, can COVID on a box kill you? And then some guy in a basement, his mom's like, COVID was invented by the Chinese government and everyone going collectively insane.
And then they stopped going to Chinese restaurants,
Right.
which, the
It's
you know, the
it
Google Guy
was
pan has nothing to do with it.
right. Man, I mean, I was like, this is and from that, out of that came a lot of the crazy stuff that we have now, like the conspiracy, because part of it was people making stuff up because they were trying to control the situation, and part of it was when you're not at work and you're not dealing with your kids and you're not doing your friends and your family and the stuff that you normally keeps your life busy, and all you can do is sit at home, watch TV, and sit on the internet.
Mm,
Well, you've got tons of time to go down a lot of rabbit holes, man. And that's what happened. People went down a lot of really wacky rabbit holes. A lot of people that I knew that I thought were normal, rational people
oh yeah,
that
people
I can't
became
even talk to anymore.
yeah,
They're
they just yeah.
off the deep end.
It's completely on all these different levels, right? Yeah, people divorced,
Yeah.
people on their Facebook pages, people there was a lot of people unfriending and all this stuff over, it's incredible. It really, really is. So does it give you hope?
Though, I mean, I will say the good thing is now coming
Or
out
you're
of it
staying
now,
home with your doors locked and the shades
right?
pulled down?
I will say, though,
Who's
that
that guy in my lawn? Why was our dog was barking? Who's that guy on the other side of the fence? Why is our dog barking?
right? Why is he looking at me like that? I kind of feel like maybe we get lucky and we have a renaissance out of this. You know,
That would be
um,
cool.
I mean, who knows? But it's the next. We're at a pivotal point, not just in
Mhm.
America, but in the world. I mean, you see it everywhere. It's not just here with the crazies and the divisiveness. It's in the UK. It's in Russia.
It's
It's
all
in
around the world. Yeah,
it's in China. It's all over the world. There's Canada. I mean, shoot, it's everywhere.
it's
So
everywhere.
we're gonna see how we come out this on the other side. I'm hoping that we are resilient and that we, we come out good on the other side. But
We shall
we shall
see.
see.
Are you considering political office? I mean, I see that you already have some of your campaign material out.
Right.
There you go. That's it.
The funny thing is, I totally would actually. I would absolutely run for something. I have no idea how to do that. Like I would run for local office and work my way up if but on one hand I have no idea how to do that. And second of all, I don't know if in this day and age, I mean, after Trump, I don't know that anybody cares what anybody does in their personal life or what, or not that I have tons of skeletons in my closet, but I was a, comedian for 30 years. I'm, I tons of video of me saying all sorts of outlandish stuff. So I guess that's okay nowadays. So that's probably all right. But I'm like, um, but I wonder. I actually would. I actually would like to try to make a difference in the world, but I don't know that I would ever get elected anywhere. But you know, um, I'm here to support anybody who does.
Who is, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. That is so cool. So what do you
How
have
about, how about
coming
you?
up?
Would you ever consider it?
Running for
Yeah.
office? I've been asked a couple of times.
Yeah.
I think I do what I do to try to make the room better than I found it in some other ways,
Yeah.
charitable work and good conversations like this, but other work that I do that doesn't, require your shirt being ripped off and a slugging happening and mudslinging and all that stuff that goes on these days. Sort of like under the radar doing certain things
Yeah.
to help, the common good. I think yeah, I don't know if I would want to go into the ring like that.
Right.
It's messy and dirty and nonsensical. It's like a circus now. Now it's a circus. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like a Twilight Zone episode that is an ongoing marathon on New Year's Eve.
I mean, I would love to see. That's why I really loved Al Franken. I wish he would come back. I really would love to see um, a left wing, or I mean center left. It doesn't have to be like democratic socialist or anything. I'd love to see a left center left Donald Trump, in that, not a narcissist, not a whatever, but you have to admit that years before, a politician couldn't swear, a politician couldn't make a misstep, a politician couldn't do anything public without getting. I mean, Howard Dean was a fantastic candidate, and he got ruined because he went rah.
That's it.
That's it.
Isn't it amazing? It's just by just doing that one thing.
Right, done.
And I mean, that's crazy. The
And
entire
yet
his whole
Donald Trump could
career.
say all the crazy stuff he says, do all the, and they're like, he's okay. So I kind of would be nice to have. I'd love to have a comedian. I'd love to have somebody who's just really brash, who's really smart, really empathetic, left leaning or very left, who is just like, who can get into the debate like Donald Trump and go, hey, shut it, I'm talking over here. Like I want to see that guy. I want to see that. I want to see somebody on the left that isn't diplomatic, that just goes, hey, all right. Maybe we throw some insults at him and then gets back to, can we talk about policy over here? All right. Because they do that on the other side, but they don't ever
Right.
bring up the policy's never there. It's all the culture wars and the this and that.
It's all the other, right? It's
I want that with the policies.
with the
I would love to see
policies.
that.
How are we going to make the world or the country a better place, right? How are we going to bring people together, more empathy, more kindness, collaboration, all of that
Yes.
is
Yes.
important. Yeah, it
Yes.
really is. So what you do and have done, trying to make people laugh, trying to make people think is very important because that's very healing and that, brings humor is a great, I always love levity and I'm always looking for ways to make people laugh. And it's a natural thing that comes, my father, I could see it. Sometimes some of the words that come out of my mouth is my dad talking,
Right.
some just that New York Irish sort of quick observational humor type thing, which I absolutely love. And but I think humor is a great healer and it breaks the ice.
Yeah.
And I think conversations, even like what we're having now, are great to bring people in and get people to sort of mellow out and find balance in their lives. And humor is also a form for the person that's delivering the humor and the recipient therapy on many levels, isn't it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And what you said about breaking the ice, like that's one of the things, I like I said, I like to talk about things that are what I find important, but also sometimes those things are divisive. And I find that when you talk, if I just was arguing with somebody about, their religion or their politics or whatever else it was I'm talking to them about or just having a discussion with, they might get really offended. They might get really angry. They might want to fight me on it and whatever. But if I can make them laugh while making my point, a lot of times it really lowers those defenses and they go, okay, yeah, I see your point. And I find that what really happens with what I do is I'll make a joke about something, because everything I do is kind of debunk. I hate the word debunking, but that's what everybody else calls it. So debunking comedy. I'm debunking something silly, and then they laugh at that because they think it's silly too. And then I make another joke about something, and they laugh at that because they think that's silly. And then I make another joke, and they laugh at that because they think that's silly. And then I get to a joke about something they believe, and everyone else is laughing, and they're going, "Wait a second, that's not funny. I believe that." And they see that everyone else is laughing and they see the formula is the same. Wait, when he did this joke and this joke and this joke.
Yeah.
And then it makes people go, could this be as a goofy of an idea or belief or whatever? Or could it deserve as much reflection as these other things I was laughing at?
Right.
It makes people go, let me think about it. And I've had so many people come up and go, yeah, I disagree with you, but I'm going to think about that. Do you have a book I can read on that? Do you have something? And I go, yeah, check this out or read this or watch this video. And I've had people hit me up later on and say, I actually changed my opinion on this because
As a result. Yeah.
yeah, because I went and did the research and you're right. This isn't the case. And that's happened a few times. And
Mhm.
I love that. And I don't think that would have happened if we were just arguing at a coffee shop or something. I think that happened because, or if they just heard me on a podcast, ranting about something, it was because they were laughing and because they were
Right.
having a good time and they liked what I had to say until I got to something they didn't. And it made them evaluate it.
Do you ever like pay attention to or observe how sometimes a phrase will come out and then all of a sudden I'm a wordsmith too, and I'm always listening to different things that come out that become all of a sudden what everybody's saying, even if people are just saying it because it's the thing that everybody's saying. Like you said, everybody says debunked. Everybody says we're going to unpack that.
Right.
Let's take this information. We're going to unpack it.
Right.
My luggage still needs to be unpacked from Christmas in Florida, but that's aside from unpacked. We're going to drop the record. Now, I've worked in radio, and let me tell you, if you ever drop the record, the general manager would be in that studio in 5 seconds, and you'd be out of the building if you dropped the record. But just some of these like things that people hear, and then all of a sudden, I one time posted just the phrase "no problem," and like when you go to the store or you go somewhere, and people when you thank them, thank you for doing that, appreciate it, thank you, no problem. And it's usually delivered that way too. It's not no problem. It's like you would say, you're welcome, my pleasure. It's no problem. I'm like, wait a minute. If it was going to be a problem, I wouldn't have asked in the first place.
Right.
When did it become a problem? I don't understand. When did that sort of come in? And I posted it, and then I had all these people responding like, "Oh my, it was just an experiment. Oh my God, I say it too. I got to stop saying that." And they're like, and I said, well, maybe go in and try my pleasure or thank you and see what
Right.
happens. Just the tone and the delivery. I suppose, no problem. I mean, you go up to the cashier, no problem. Well, I mean, you're getting paid. I mean, I don't think it would have been a
Yeah.
problem that got me the peas and carrots in the can that I needed. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
interesting when you look at how everybody's saying the same things, and it's like
When
cattle.
language changes, right? And slang changes. It's so funny you say no problem. I always say no worries, and I think I got that because I have,
Now
I used to
that's
have
a
a
British, Irish, British. You hear
yeah,
that a lot in Europe and
in
England,
Australia.
Australia
You
as well. No
no worries,
worries.
mate. No worries,
Yeah,
mate. It's
yeah.
right. That's
See, they
because
throw
hey,
the mate on, so that's sort of
yeah,
like buddy, buddy.
yeah,
They couldn't say bloke.
yeah, right.
I always love
But
that
yeah,
word, bloke.
no worries. Yeah, it's so funny because I remember how I'm a bit of a grammar Nazi on a lot of things, and and too much so, like it's annoying. I get it, but when my wife for a while was a high school teacher, 90s, mid 90s at some point, and that was when the phrase when kids started saying "my bad," they'd be like "my bad," and I
Mm,
remember hating that, going,
my bad.
"Ugh,
Yeah.
you sound
Yeah.
like a caveman. What is wrong with me bad, you good?" Like, what are you talking about? My bad. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now, 25 years later, I catch myself going, "My bad," all the time. I'm like, wow, when did I start saying that? I'm like, I guess
Hmm.
over the years of hearing it, I don't say it that up, but I find myself saying something that I thought was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard because
Let's
it's
un-
just now,
let's unpack that.
because it's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's another. That's in my wheelhouse.
We'll
I mean,
circle
it's
back to it later.
and sometimes you hear people say it like they're just saying it because they want to be included, and you're like, "Come on, you would never have said that if you didn't hear the other guy say it across the street. You didn't
Right.
even look the part. That's not your style. You would never say that phrase." It's just funny, when
Yeah.
you hear some of these the wheelhouse. That's another one. Yeah. What's some other ones? I'm sure there's so many like that are. You just hear it constantly over and over and over.
Yeah, I find too different industries. In the film industry, there's like phrases that everybody says, and I'm like, I don't hear that anywhere. And I'm trying to think of what some of them are, but like wheelhouse, like that one. There's a few that I always hear people say within the same circle of people, and I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't hear it anywhere
they're
else.
using, like, all of them. They're spinning the wheel and whatever pops
Yeah,
up. Today it's wheelhouse or unpack or debunk or
yeah,
it almost sounds robotic, like,
yeah,
doesn't it sound like real conversation sometimes when you
yeah.
hear it?
I think, but I think it goes to our nature of that. Like sometimes people just we're very into, um, and by Sherry, you got
Yeah.
great fans over here, by the way,
Yeah,
James,
the
Sherry,
Lovity Squad, the Lovities on the Jim Master
yes.
Show, yeah.
But I think we're such creatures of habit, right? That and by nature we're kind of followers. So I think like when we hear this person say it, or the boss says it, or somebody I look up to says it, and then we repeat it. And I've heard people repeat I think it was my wife and I actually were just talking about this, how sometimes people repeat stuff incorrectly. And
Right, yeah, it changes over time,
right,
right, yeah.
so somebody said something and they used the word wrong and nobody
Yes.
corrects them, right?
No, and then it
And then
becomes
somebody who heard that, like say you're on a group with your work, right? And there's 10 employees and your boss uses a word, and your boss says, well, that's not in my wheel home. And you're like, oh,
right.
and everyone's like, did he mean wheelhouse? Wheel home. But then somebody else doesn't know it and decides to repeat it later on. Guys, when you're in your wheel home, be sure to blah 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 blah. And then it becomes down the road pretty much now everyone's saying it, and at
Then
some
it
point you're
becomes
sitting there
Will
going,
Barrel.
this isn't a word.
It's
This
no
is not a
longer
phrase. It doesn't mean anything. But
yeah.
now it's become something within that 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 echo chamber of group of people because somebody repeated something that they thought, I guess that means something. I'm going to say it again, and then other people start saying it, and I wonder how many people were like, I'm saying this even though I know it's
Yeah,
completely wrong,
right. Yeah,
and
yeah. They
but
they
yeah,
went from they went from, "Boy, that's a cool muffler sound," to, "Oh, I love that exhaust note."
yeah,
You know, just
but I do find that there's a thing there where it's like people just it become people say something, and I've heard it many times. Where I'm like, you all keep saying this. That's
yeah,
not a real phrase.
everybody. Right, yeah,
Why is everyone saying this phrase? I'm like, somebody said it and somebody repeated it, and then it became a thing, and no one wanted to
mm,
correct the boss. And
yeah.
now everyone says it, and now does never no one knows why they started saying it in the first place, and it's just a thing
Same
we do,
as it ever was, same as it ever was.
right? Thank you,
Yeah.
David.
I remember there was we had a neighbor he used to always say, "Like it is. Like it is." Just there was a phrase he used to always say, "Like it
Well,
is."
that's I do love it when people have their thing that they say. I had a friend who used to say, "Is it?" Like that was his respond to anything.
Oh,
Like
is it?
even if it didn't make any sense, you'd be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm going to the store." He'd go, "Is it?" Is what?
Yes. Right.
And I find here in LA, a lot of young, the one with Latinos is they say, "What happened?"
What happened? Right.
That
What happened?
that's
Right.
a like you'll be go, hey, you'll say, hey, yeah, so I gotta go go walk my dog, and they go, what happened? And what they mean is, I'm sorry, what did you say? Pardon me. But
Right.
their way of they didn't hear you, and what they say is, what happened? And I'm like, nothing happened. I just was
Right.
saying I'm gonna walk my dog. But that became something that that group of demographic of people, because of their peer group, that's the phrase they say. What happened? It's slang. It's a slang for sorry, come again? And you go, well,
Exactly.
why, what happened? That doesn't even make sense.
There's
Like
a
my
new
friend who says, is it? Is
is
what?
it? Is it? There's a news anchor on one of the networks. I won't say who it is, but this news anchor, as they're talking and explaining the story or whatever the subject matter is, constantly injects. Now we all say it from time to time. Sometimes it's a segue or whatever, but constantly says, you know, you know, and I'm sitting there saying, no, I don't know. That's why I'm watching you to tell me the story. And no, I don't know. And he constantly goes, And I'm like, no, that's why we're watching you because we don't know. You're informing us. you
I have
know?
a friend who says, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I say probably too much. My friend says, yeah, like an but it's very strange because he's like, I don't know who he's agreeing with. Like when we talk, and
Yeah.
he'll say, yeah, da 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 da, da. And in the middle of the sentence, he'll say, yeah, again. Yeah, get some water. Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and he just says yeah all the time, and it's so much that I notice it. I'm like, why are you saying yeah?
You know,
Um,
what's another one people say a lot when you are just conversing with them or you ask them a question, you hear a lot of people they start the answer as if they're already in mid sentence. They'll start with, I mean, I'm like,
yeah,
you mean what?
right,
I haven't even, you're just starting to answer the question for the first time. You just walked in the room.
right.
I mean,
I
well,
mean,
did you
yeah,
mean something else before? Because you didn't say anything before.
right,
You're just starting to talk now. I
yes,
mean, I hear that a lot. I
yeah.
mean,
I, I, I wonder if it comes from people thinking in their head, I'm gonna say this, and then they before I say it, let me clarify what I'm about to say. And their
I
first
wonder
one
how
is,
they'd be on a lie detector test. I mean, I meant
yeah. I mean, that's. I mean, there you go. I mean, that's another. That is
that's funny.
actually another thing that people say all the time is honestly or to be honest. I say it honestly. Well, yeah. Why would you not be honest? To
And
be
I'm about
honest,
that's right. And I'm about to say one now, and it was starting to come out my mouth, and I'm like, "Gee, should I say it or hold it back?" I was gonna say, "Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly." That's funny. Funny stuff, isn't it? Life is crazy, Ian Harris, isn't it?
it
It
is
really
indeed.
is. I tell you, this is awesome. So good things coming down the pike. There's of course the website and all, and that can direct you to a lot of other cool places. This was awesome having you on the show and really learning about your craft and why you love doing what you're doing. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, and people know you from a lot of different things. And it was cool that you were able to stop by and share some levity and crazy life observations with us. We'll keep the porch light on, and I hope. You enjoyed the time with me as much as I have with you, Ian. This was
Oh, it
awesome.
was really super fun. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Leslie,
Yes.
for turning me on to it. Yeah, no, absolutely. This is so much fun. And one day, if you ever want to talk politics, I don't know if that's something some people want to steer clear of it, but if you ever do want to get down and dirty on politics, you should come on Ty and I show and talk some politics with us because it's we have a good time with it. But I get it; it's not for everybody. So I tell people like, if you
It's a
if you
good
got
way to get it out and express it. It's one of the
right,
better ways as opposed to the ways that people are doing it now, which is pushing and shoving in
yeah,
Macy's. You know what I mean?
absolutely,
It's a little bit better to vent and express, which is what it's all about. Spread the word about the Jim Masters show. I'd love that, Ian, if you
absolutely.
know other folks. And let's stay connected. Good luck with everything that you're doing. A couple of the lovities, fantastic conversation, Ian. You crack me up. Thanks for sharing your humor. Keep on
Thank
keeping
you, Maureen.
on. Maureen, Jane in Sweden, thanks for being here tonight. Ian, thanks, Jim. You are welcome. Gang, thanks for the comments. Drop a comment on our YouTube channel and give this a thumbs up like as well if you enjoyed it. The best, Ian. Really appreciate it. Even had George Burns stop in tonight.
Right.
I mean, doesn't get any better than that, huh?
No. Back from the dead.
Back from the,
But he is
or
God, though.
maybe. Are you skeptical? Maybe.
Yes, I know. Yes.
Maybe
He's a
not.
ghost.
George, you said you're dead. You just finished that martini. Don't worry about
Right.
it.
And that cigar.
He says it. He says it in love.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who was on all the kind comments. I've actually
Yeah,
been reading them here.
the Lovity
everyone. So
Squad.
thank you all.
Yeah.
Great group here. Appreciate you very much for having me.
My pleasure as well, Ian. You be well, my friend. Stay connected, and we'll have you back. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. You take care. Cheers. Cheers, you bloke.
Mate.
I love that word, mate. See you later.
See you.
Yes, the word bloke used in England. I love that word when somebody, it's like pal, it's like buddy, if you're not familiar with that word. He's a real bloke. Just the sound of it. I mean, I don't know here in America, if you said somebody's a bloke, if they think that you're telling them off or something. Kathleen in New York says, thanks for being here, Ian. Enjoyed listening to you. Great show. Thank you, Kathleen in New York City. Valencia. What a great name, huh? Valencia Burns. Valencia gives us 2 hearts. Love that. And Jane goes, you never let the dog in, Ian. The dog. You notice the dog is very quiet. I guess the neighbor either fed him something or he's let in the house and he fell asleep. You guys are great. Thanks for all the great comments. We really appreciate it. Really awesome. And I want to let you know that coming up tomorrow, we've got an amazing guest, a rising star. He's all excited. We're all excited as well. He's a fantastic singer, songwriter, musician. He's 18 years old. He's already shared the stage with lots of legends. Yes, Jack Thistle is going to be here, 18 years old, and his star is incredibly rising, incredibly fast. Musician, singer, songwriter is going to perform live for us on the Jim Masters Show Live, Entertainment Lifestyle Variety Talk Show series. I want to let you know also on Sunday at a special time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I know it's Super Bowl Sunday, so we're going to slip in a show. Pepper J is going to be here. She is a legendary award-winning music and film producer and actress. She's going to be with us. Monday, a return visit from a music icon. Matter of fact, dubbed the original Black Bombshell. And matter of fact, that's how she describes herself. The one and only, the iconic Holly the Maxwell is returning. She loved being on our show so much, she actually asked to come back on the show. She said, Jim, how do we get back on? I want to go back on. I love the vibe. I love the levity. You know, her phrase is love is. So, and she's been doing that for decades. So she's going to be with us Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Jim Masters Show Live, Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show series for all of you. Gang, if you enjoyed this episode, give it a thumbs up. Yeah, there's a thumbs up icon. To make sure you hit the one that's thumbs up, please. There's only one, and it's the one that's thumbs up. Hit that. Drop a comment on our YouTube channel underneath this episode as well. And do subscribe to the YouTube channel, gang, if you haven't done that yet. It doesn't cost anything. I don't know why they use the word subscribe, but it doesn't cost a dime to do that. You just hit that red subscribe button. Some people, it's a black subscribe button. I noticed that lately. But hit that, and you're part of the JMS Lovity Squad, Lovity family. And we thank Ian for joining us live and direct from his home in Los Angeles, California. Great conversation, a lot of humor, a lot of critical thinking, a lot of observation of life, comedian, actor, voice artist, and so much more. You've seen him, you've heard him, and it was cool to have him here on the show. We thank our mutual friend, Leslie Wolf, another brilliant comedian and teacher as well, for making another connection. A lot of our guests love to do that as well. Kathleen Walker says she's always looking out for me. Thank you, Jim. Now go eat and relax. Yeah, it is about 20 to 9 here on the East Coast, where you are in New York. Good night, all, and hugs. Thanks. I appreciate that. You guys are the best. Hey, if this is your first time watching our series, welcome to the Jim Masters Show Live. Would you believe there's almost 900 episodes that you can binge watch with guests that have come in from Broadway and Hollywood, television, film, music, comedy, sports, inspiration, culinary arts, and everything you can think of, as we do this kind of like a Carson, Dick Cavett style, warm, conversational, not really interviews, much more conversations here on the show. Thanks for all the comments. Again, if you would like to comment on our YouTube channel, drop a comment in the comment section. We would love that. Valencia says, good night from Atlanta, Georgia. Good night to you in Atlanta, Valencia. Awesome to have you with us. You're now a JMS Lovity. And Maureen in Arizona says, what a load of fun this was. What a gifted guy Ian is. And I'm amazed at his spot-on impressions. That was cool of him to do that, because we didn't, we don't rehearse, we don't script questions. Sometimes the guest doesn't know, what direction we're going in, which is cool. I think it makes it real and authentic, that we don't script it all. Johnny Carson never liked to pre-do anything either. Jackie Gleason on The Honeymooners, he didn't like to do anything because it keeps it fresh and real. And you go in so many different directions. There's a lot of treasures and nuggets that happen when you just let it roll and let it ride. Not everybody likes to do that, but a lot of times, even the ones that don't, once they do it, they loosen the tie a little bit and they love it and they want to come back, which is cool. All right. Maureen also says, sending love and tight, lovely hugs to all y'all. To those of you putting up with the crazy cold weather, stay warm. We're good here. On the East Coast, believe it or not, it's like 50 degrees and it's going to get warmer here. I don't know. We've had no snow here on the coast. I'm on the coast. We've had no snow. Everybody north of us, west of us, but here we've had like no snow. Now, of course, I know I say that and watch next week. We'll probably get a blizzard, but nothing, which is really amazing. So, all right, gang, you guys are the best around here. Again, we don't say goodbye. We say see you later. Ciao, cheers, hasta la vista, sayonara, shalom. Avidazine, Moy Loop, Cheerio, Slancha. And gang, don't forget to stop by the Jim Master Show Live. Say hi. Let us know you're enjoying what we're doing. And don't forget to relax. Yeah, I know you guys love when I show the sign. I used to show this in the earlier days of our series. And then everybody said, bring back the relax signs. So, hey, we got this in the window at a shop in Newport, Rhode Island, when we were on a family vacation, and I just incorporated it into the show along with George Burns. I know you guys love as well. Cool stuff. You guys have been really hopping tonight. I absolutely love that. Great guests coming up. Many more poignant conversations, entertainment, light, levity, and all the rest for you here on the Jim Masters Show. Thanks for being with us. Like, comment, subscribe, do your homework, and we'll see you on the next episode. We love you all. Take care. Cheers.